It is past 9 from Johannesburg, South Africa. Let's focus on a topic of much discussion. Of course, it has been for the last 2 years across the world, concern around what is happening in the Middle East. So after more than 2 years of conflict, tens of thousands of lives lost, widespread destruction and a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire. Under the first phase of the deal, hostages will be exchanged and Israeli forces will begin to withdraw to a pre-agreed yellow line. But how real is this ceasefire? Who gains? Who risks losing? And what will life look like in Gaza if the guns genuinely fall silent? Well, to answer these questions, we're joined now by academic researcher and analyst Thembisa Fakude. A very good evening to you, Thembisa, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So, this process has been ongoing for years, if not decades, to reach this point. And we've seen the worst humanitarian crisis as a result thereof. But I want to find out, in your view, what are some of the unresolved conditions of this deal? We're saying it's the first phase. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that Benjamin Netanyahu can't be trusted. He has renegated in the past after making deals with the Palestinians via his mediators, United States, and on the side of the Palestinians, Qataris and Egypt. So this time around, while those announcements were made, Israel was still bombarding Gaza. So we don't know precisely what's going to be happening, but there seemed to be some movement, and I'll only believe it when I see it, because at the moment, as we speak, the environment is not conducive to be transferring hostages from Gaza into Israel, because it's just simply unsafe. As I've said, Israel continues to bombard Gaza, notwithstanding that Trump announces a 20-point plan to achieve peace, but we don't see Israel moving towards ceasing the bombardment in Gaza and the annexation that's currently taking place in the West Bank.
And obviously, timing is everything. And as you expressed doubt on whether or not peace will not only be upheld, but the commitments made, President Donald Trump has been very clear that he will achieve this milestone. But there's also his own personal interest in it. He's said he will be given a Nobel Peace Prize for his endeavors, not only in the Middle East, but elsewhere as well. Is this what could have possibly led to both parties feeling the pressure, and how genuine is that in terms of internal and external political pressures?
Yeah, well, we're I think, still very, very far away from the actual peace because there are so many other issues that are pending that require to be solved in Gaza, particularly the reconstruction of Gaza. The arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu, who's got a warrant of arrest from the ICC. The court case that the ICJ still continues. But more than anything else, we have thousands of Palestinians who are refugees way before October the 7th. And these are people in Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and other countries who are stateless and who are looking at going back to their homes or driven out of their homes in 1948, 1967, 73, and all other wars that have since taken place, so forced Palestinians to flee their land. So that's another discussion that has to take place. Gaza itself is a large refugee camp. Many of people from Gaza come from what is now known as Israel. Many of them come from places such as Jaffa, which is now called Tel Aviv. They are looking at going back to their homes. You've got the illegal settlements that have continued to mushroom, not only after October the 7th, but even before that. And if you're going to be talking about the Palestinian state, for example, where are you going to construct that? Because at the moment, it's just practically impossible to have a state, given that we've got all of these illegal settlements in the West Bank in particular, that will prevent the Palestinian state from being constructed. So Donald Trump is doing it for his own convenience, business by and large. This is why you have his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, involved in this, because they see an opportunity for them to reconstruct Gaza into what he called the Riviera of the Middle East. But peace is just still too far away for us to even entertaining the discussion, because there's so many other issues that I've just mentioned that need to be solved before anything resembling peace can be achieved in that part of the world.
And what you mentioned is a very interesting, a curious fact, which I'm sure a lot of people have also speculated over the presence of Jared Kushner, his presence there, and the impact of the quality of mediation support, bar the roles of Egypt, Qatar. What has been the impact, the influence on what is being offered as guarantees to both parties?
Well, at the moment, Hamas has got no guarantees, but Hamas is under pressure to disarm. Hamas is under pressure to disband its operation. So Hamas has got no guarantees. The only guarantees that they have are those the hostages that are buried, because they have argued that the rebel has to be cleared first before they can even recover those that were buried underneath those that were abducted by Hamas on October the 7th. So what you're going to see happening in the next couple of hours will be the release of those that are alive and some of those that Hamas know precisely where they are in terms of their burial sites. But the only guarantee that they have is that and nothing else. After this, they're expected to disband. We're expecting a new Palestinian authority, in inverted commas, that will replace the current government of Palestine. And that is going to consist of technocrats, including the likes of Tony Blair. So Hamas is on a back foot, and we just don't know what's going to happen after this. Should Benjamin Netanyahu and his zealots, who are very keen on committing and continuing with this genocide, go back to square one, as they've done so many times in the past. So Hamas might release those hostages, but there are no guarantees that there will be a permanent ceasefire.
And given what you said then, in terms of not only timelines, but what happens next, those are clearly benchmarks, but could possibly be triggers on, whether this will genuinely go forth as a negotiation. And what are your thoughts on what will it take to achieve movement towards some sort of ceasefire, even if Hamas complies?
I think, by the way, we need to remember that this was not a war between Hamas and Israel. This was the attack on the innocent Palestinians by Israel.
Yes.
It was a one-sided, bombardment of the Palestinians and killing of civilians. The majority of the people that have been killed in these attacks have been women and children. So to say it's a war, it was not a war. It was a one-sided bombardment of innocent people. And I think what will happen henceforth is that Hamas will have to, unfortunately, disband, because I don't see anyone in the world, or government in the world, or any authority for that matter, in the Middle East dealing with Hamas, because everyone is under pressure to ensure that Hamas disbands. So Hamas finds itself in a much more complicated position. They might have to come up with a new outfit which will eventually compete for elections, both in Gaza and the West Bank. But I think in the absence of anything viable, they might just want to continue with their struggle, because they've got nothing to lose now. Even though, of course, they've had quite a knock in terms of their arsenal and weaponry, which has been depleted by Israelis, but they still can continue fighting and struggling. I think the only thing that we'll consider right now is the new strategy and tactic on how they wage their struggle. But the armed struggle, I don't think they'll survive or continue with that, given the destruction that Israel has committed both in Gaza and the West Bank. So they're in a much more complicated position, and they will have to rely on the Qataris and the Egyptians in terms of, making sure that Israel meet their obligations. But I doubt if Israel is going to meet the obligation. Benjamin Netanyahu is not, renegated from his commitment to destroy Hamas. So as long as Hamas is alive and around, particularly in Qatar and in Turkey, you are likely to have Israel continuing hunting them down.
And if I did use the word war, I would obviously withdraw that, because language is important in contextualizing and understanding the phase at which these talks are. So let's talk about enforcement mechanisms. Do we know and understand how that is going to be applied, and how will that also be reflected, particularly when you talk about humanitarian and financial support?
Well, the Americans are going to be involved. Donald Trump has appointed himself to be the chairperson of the so-called Board of Peace, which is the new um, um, platform that will see the transition and the reconstruction of Gaza. So, given that, you are likely to have the Americans facilitating that, but people are going to be funding the project of reconstruction, and not all that goes with it. It's going to be mainly the Gulf countries led by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. That's where the money is going to be coming from. And Trump, of course, and his son-in-law, they're going to benefit in terms of business concessions. And Turkey is also, placing itself quite comfortably, including China and all other countries who are now looking at these opportunities. Sadly, of course, South Africa being far away, notwithstanding that we've done more than most countries, but I don't think we'll benefit from any of the contracts and tenders that are going to be coming out in terms of reconstruction of Gaza. So it's interesting times ahead, and I think in the next couple of hours we'll get to know exactly what will be the next steps. But we'll all have to wait and pray that Benjamin Netanyahu does not renegade and go back into bombarding Gaza once again.
But ultimately, I would imagine that for this to enjoy any kind of success, and depending from which prism you're looking at it, because there are the regional dynamics and there's the aspect of international law, is the issue around accountability. How is that being crafted in terms of the language around this peace deal or ceasefire deal?
Well, Israel does not respect international law. Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, these two ultra-right-wing alliances of Benjamin Netanyahu, they've said it, that the international law applies to the rest, but the chosen people don't have to adhere to international law, meaning that Jewish people are not subject to international law. So they don't respect international law, and they'll continue doing as they please. I mean, they've violated every single law in the book. And for them, of course, the destruction and the cancellation of international law, including multilateralism, will serve them good, because in that situation, they can do as they please. Right now, the only instruments that hold them responsible and accountable for their crimes is international law, and they want to see that destroyed. And in fact, they were hoping that they were going to be expelled from the United Nations, both General Assembly and other platforms, so that they can, be free to do as they please. So I don't see them actually continuing or resuming the respect of any laws that govern all of us as a global community. I see them continuing with what they're doing, and hope, of course, that Donald Trump and the Americans will force the hands of the ICC, for example, to drop the cases against Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu, two of the culprits that are now charged with crimes against humanity, and also put pressure on those countries that have since joined the ICJ to drop that case. So that's the playbook of Israel at the moment.
In 30 seconds, what do you think the impact will be of this on media and narrative control?
I think it's going to be very difficult to control it in any way or form, given where we are at the moment in terms of the level of destruction. And media was always prevented from coming in and reporting in Gaza and the West Bank, amongst other things. And I think right now we're in a situation where the level of destruction cannot be interpreted, translated, or explained by anyone. We will have to rewrite the rules and regulations on how to deal with rules of engagement in wars, because what Israel has done, the crimes that they've committed, they're unprecedented, and I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to even explain or put any definition to it.
All right. Thembisa Fakude, thank you very much for your time and your insights. Much appreciated. He is an academic and researcher analyzing the latest news announced by President Donald Trump of